Dowland diary. It's very exciting. I'm on a train heading to London. I'm heading to London in search of Dowland's burial place. I've been playing the music of John Dowland all my life. Through studying his compositional technique, I've traced his thought processes and gleaned an understanding of his musical style. But how much do I really know about this extraordinary man who lived 400 years ago? I hope my journey to London in search of the place where Dowland is buried will help me add another dimension to my understanding of his music. I'm travelling with my eldest daughter Florence. She's kindly offered to film on my mobile phone. We're heading to Balckfriars in the southwest of the capital, located on the bank of the River Thames. This area of London is incredible, home to St Paul's Cathedral and Temple Bar, the ceremonial entrance to the City of London. There is so much history here. We're looking for signs of a priory called the Balckfriars, the name taken from the black cape worn by the Dominican friars who founded the monastery in 1220. It's here, 300 years later, on February the 20th, 1626, John Dowland, Master of Music, is recorded to have been buried at St Anne's Church, Balckfriars, aged 63. The Church of St Anne began as a medieval chapel within the Balckfriars Monastery. By 1520, it was part of the precinct that included multiple gardens, a kitchen and buttery, cloisters, a library and infirmary, everything you'd expect within monastic grounds. But in 1597, the chapel collapsed. It was then rebuilt on a larger scale, only to be destroyed 70 years later as a result of the Great Fire of London in 1666. There is little evidence now of the Balckfriars Priory. Only a plaque exists acknowledging the location. St Anne's Chapel no longer stands, but there are some remains, and as we navigated our way through a maze of little streets, we came across an alleyway with the street name Church Entry. So I've just arrived at Balckfriars in London, and this is the site of St Anne's Chapel where John Dowland is registered to have been buried. It's not built on because I believe this is the consecrated bit, and we can see there's two tombstones behind me. These are not Dowland's, sadly. There's nothing to mark Dowland's resting place. There are many theories as to why Dowland has no marked burial site. Tracing Dowland's circumstances leading up to his death helps to piece together a context. On March the 27th, 1625, King James I died, and the City of London began the preparations for a state funeral. Listed alongside musicians employed to provide the music was John Dowland. It would be his last public engagement. 5 weeks after the funeral, London welcomed a new king, Charles I. During these two major public occasions, the city would have been thronging with people, and congregations would have filled the churches. A big shadow hung over these two events. The plague had made its way into the suburbs of London at the beginning of the year. Its silent and deadly tendrils spread itself undetected. A survivor of the 1625 epidemic, a poet called George Wither, noted, "Infection unperceived in many a place before the bleary-eyed searchers knew her face." London officials, given the circumstances and pressure, failed to take measures to prevent the contagion and ploughed on with public events. One Londoner wrote, "Though the sickness increase shrewdly upon us, yet we cannot find it in our hearts to leave this town, so long as here is such doings." In the following months, the plague ripped through the population of London, killing 35,000 inhabitants out of a population of 330,000. The wealthy fled to estates in the country. Businesses shut, food supplies dwindled. Only the poor and the sick were left struggling in this once proud city, now brought to its knees. It's not known if Dowland was caught up in the plague epidemic. Mass burials would have been rushed to avoid a further spread of disease. Documentation is sketchy. All we have is the note in the Register of Burials from St Anne's, Blackfriars, regarding his death. February 20th. John Dowland, Doctor of Music. It's understood that the day Dowland died, his employment as court musician to James I ended. The date documented to be Christmas, 1625, and 26 days. By all accounts, it would seem that his body lay unburied for a month. In 1625, an English writer, Thomas Dekker, published a pamphlet called A Rod for Runaways. It's addressed directly to those who have run away from the city, fleeing the plague, in which flight of theirs, if they look back, they may behold many fearful judgments of God. Dekker goes further, writing, "How shall the lame and blind and half-starved be fed? They won't come to your gates. Alas, they are barred against them. To your doors, woe into misery. You have left no key behind you to open them. These must perish." Although there's nothing here to tangibly say Dowland's resting here, it's amazing to be here, and to do this for Dowland's 400th anniversary is very special. It's so amazing being somewhere you've only ever read about, and this is St Anne's Blackfriars Island Yard, and I think that this bit of rock is the only original part we have of the building. So this again is consecrated ground, and there's lots of tombstones, but I think they're 18th century tombstones. So Dowland could be here. It's just incredible to experience this actually. I think it's quite hard for Dowland. Poor Dowland. It's very sad. Never went so well in England, and he very much hankered after a post at court, which he was declined on several occasions. He then went off to Denmark and was supremely successful, but that didn't altogether end successfully. He came back and was finally appointed to King James's court in 1612. The prolific poet and writer Henry Peacham mentions Dowland in his writings a number of times, but it's the comment in Peacham's 1622 publication, The Complete Gentleman, that he writes a personal detail about Dowland that I think is quite telling. "Of my good friend, Master Dr. Dowland, in regard he had slipped many opportunities in advancing his fortunes, and a rare lutenist as any of our nation. I gave him an emblem with this, Johannes Dolundus, annos ludendo hausi." The emblem mentioned here can be found in an incredible book published during Dowland's lifetime in 1612 called Minerva Britannia. The book contains emblems honouring royalty and nobility, poets and writers, alongside classical figures and moral metaphors. The poem's dedication to Dowland in Latin reads, "To his friend John Dowlandus, most skilled musician, the emblem is striking. A songbird, Philomel, a nightingale, sits on a thorny briar in the depths of winter. The rain storm rages, the garden fence is broken." I took the opportunity to read this poem in Island Yard at the St Anne's site. Here Philomel in silence sits alone, in depth of winter on a barbed briar. Whereas the rose had once her beauty shown, which lords and ladies did so much desire. But fruitless now, in winter's frost and snow, it doth despised and unregarded grow. So since, old friend, thy years have made thee white, and thou for others hast consumed thy spring, how few regard thee, whom thou didst delight, and far and near came once to hear thee sing. Ungrateful times and worthless age of ours, that lets us pine when it hath cropped our flowers. We took a 10-minute walk from the St Anne's site to Fetter Lane, where Dowland is thought to have lived from 1604 onwards with his wife and son Robert. His friend Henry Peacham also lived on this street. It was a hub for the arts as well as a centre for booksellers and printers. The area had good places to eat and was diverse, but it was notorious for its crime caused by overpopulation and unsanitary conditions. It's recorded that Dowland's home was at the crossroads with Fleet Street, a site used for public executions. It's here that Christopher Bales, a Jesuit priest, was executed in 1588. Dowland mentions witnessing a public execution in a letter to Sir Robert Cecil, secretary to Queen Elizabeth, written in 1595. I came into England, where I saw men of that faction condemned and executed, which I thought was great injustice, taking religion for the only cause. I'm now on Fetter Lane, which is a very busy part of London, which you can probably hear. There was a huge concentration of artists in this area, of musicians, of playwrights, theatres. There was the Balckfriars Theatre, the Cockpit, the Rose, the Globe, the Fortune, the Curtain. They all were in this area. So if you wanted to have a career as a musician, here was the place to be. It's believed he lived alongside Campion and Rossiter, at the very epicentre of where art was being created. Were in London today, there's not much that he would recognise. He would probably recognise the Thames, however, and I'm standing on Millennium Bridge, and it's a beautiful sight of the London skyline. Other than that, it's really hard to find traces of Dowland's life, but it's been quite a wonderful experience to just get close to where he was centred creatively, and it makes sense to keeping his music alive 400 years later.